It isn't an accident that EA is such a beloved publisher. A friendly, family-run boutique operation crafting unique and memorable games that aim more to bring us joy and advance video games as a whole than they do to make money. No, wait, no. No, this is for a script for another video. Oh, sorry. Ah, here we go. EA is garbage, and always has been. Yes, that's the right one. It's not like people don't want to like the mega publisher. It's brought a hell of a lot of genuine classics to us over the decades. Without Electronic Arts, we wouldn't have titles like Desert Strike and Road Rash, Mass Effect and Dead Space. But just as we're about to pop the big question and introduce EA to our parents, it goes and does something silly. Something so selfish, something so utterly stupid that it could have completely rewritten the future of the video game industry. And not in a good way for us consumers. Intrigued? Well, hello you. I'm Guru Larry, and I welcome you to a Fact Hunt special. That time EA wanted to fine you $10 for buying a used game. Receiving the green light in 2009, Project $10 launched off the back of online-related features in a couple of games, notably Dragon Age Origins Stone Prisoner DLC code included in a box, and Mass Effect 2's Cerberus Network, which offered a selection of DLCs to, well, download. If you bought Mass Effect 2 new, it included access to the Cerberus Network, and you got some DLCs for free, like the character Zaid and his loyalty mission, and weird Australian-ish space accent.
I'll make sure we get that done.
Good. Get it out of the way so we can concentrate on being big goddamn heroes.
You also got access to other paid DLC, but that wasn't the focus here, and we'll get back to that anyway. Basically, you bought a game, you got some extra free bits to download, and all was well in the world. Bought it second-hand? Okay, that's cool. Just give us a bit of money for the extra content, and we'll carry on like nothing happened. Everybody's happy. Well, fairly happy, at least. Sadly, it wasn't actually as benevolent as this. Project $10 was invented as part of a campaign against used game sales. Something EA and other publishers have been trying to indoctrinate the public about for years. See, the thing is, you buy a game new, the publisher gets a cut of the sale. You buy it used, it's only who you're buying it from gets that sweet, sweet moolah. Apparently, while capitalism is good and pure and kind and the world's greatest thing, publishers like EA only believe this when it's the sort of capitalism they specifically profit from. An independent game shop in a small town? Nah, they don't deserve money. We do. We're EA. We're important. Admittedly, the likes of GameSpot weren't exactly putting themselves in many good books with the way they operated back then. And how they still do. Well, if they still exist by the time you're watching this. So it's unsurprising there was a reaction by game publishers pushing back against the big stores, doing a classic bit of profit gouging by pushing used game sales over all others. Thing was, the pushback came against the consumer, not the stores, because consumers are softer and fleshier targets. And so, Project $10 was officially launched around February of 2010. Spun to the press and public as a way to reward first-hand purchasers of new games by giving them a few bits and pieces and trinkets. The $10 name came from what would happen when somebody bought an EA game used. They wouldn't have access to these snippets of DLC, and online services would be locked off or limited, all behind the demand to pay a fee of $10 to gain access. Because, you see, by buying a game used and saving yourself a little bit of money, you were, in EA's eyes, violently murdering the industry. You monster! How dare you try and save money? Soon enough, any EA game with an online segment, and let's be honest, was most of them, would require an online pass to play their network games or to receive the extra content. The press reported on it, of course, some neutrally, some being absolute arse-lickers, while some were a bit angrier about it all, giving voice to the immediate general sentiment behind the whole thing. That voice saying, "This is a bit shit and you really shouldn't do it, EA." But whatever the opinions though, Project $10 was here, and things would only continue to get more stupid. At least, for a few years. It's not that Project $10 was evil, specifically, but it very quickly veered away from solid chunks of extra game to entice you into buying new, or buying an online pass, and moved into things like Pandemic's The Saboteur. What did you get with your online pass here? Boobs. You got boobs. You bought it new, or you bought an online pass separately, and your hard-earned cash went towards removing clothes from working women in the game. It definitely said a lot about the idea as a whole. But what made Project $10 so truly stupid was the way it completely misunderstood or ignored the game's playing audience, instead focusing on nickel and diming people just because they couldn't always buy new, didn't want to, or simply couldn't if a game went out of print. I mean, think of the other industries in the world where people buy things. Books, cars, Blu-rays. Nobody argues against the used sales of them. Car manufacturers authorise used car dealers, and the used book shop is a staple of the entire industry. Used books are romanticised and encouraged freely and openly. You don't buy a house brand new every time, and when you do buy one used, you're not charged an extra $4,000 to access the kitchen. Project $10, however, misread the room spectacularly, inadvertently pitting the public against publishers who are being forced to introduce these paywalls. Some probably agreed. In fact, some definitely did agree that online passes were for the greater good. But really, this was something pushed by EA suits to defend their massive piles of money in a move Scrooge McDuck would likely be proud of. That said, all the focus on EA in this video is, honestly, a bit unfair. Yes, unfair to EA. It is possible. Who'd have thunk? Because while it may have been where things started for the online pass, and it might have been where the snazzy, exciting Project $10 name came from, it wasn't the only company to run with the idea. In fact, by 2011, a hell of a lot of games included an online pass mechanic of their own. Sony were doing it with the PSN Pass, Ubisoft introduced the Uplay passports, Microsoft did its own version, as did THQ, Warner, Konami, and others. Activision took a while. Bobby Kotick was originally vocally against online passes, in fact. But eventually, the lure of cash became too much. Online passes had proven they would make money for companies and stop the evil scourge of the used game market taking money right out of the publishers' pockets. You nasty people, going to CEX like that. Puh. Some devs and publishers were vocal in their opposition to used games, and about the so-called benefits of the online pass system. Mortal Kombat added an online pass, with creator Ed Boon saying, "When we sell a game, we need to recuperate the cost of development. These games cost many, many millions of dollars to produce." That's fair enough, it really is. But then the kicker, if somebody is reselling our game and cutting us out of the sharing of the profits of the game, to pay for our games, we need to do something to protect our investment. And that's where we all collectively shut off a bit. Fable 3's combat designer Mike West, meanwhile, told Eurogamer, "Piracy these days on PC is probably less problematic than second-hand sales on the Xbox." And hero of making great games, Dennis Dyack, was another throwing his voice out there to attack the used game industry. "I would argue," he said, "that used games are cannibalising the industry. If developers and publishers don't see revenue from that, it's not a matter of, hey, we're trying to increase the price of games to consumers and we want more. We're just trying to survive as an industry. If used games continue the way that they are, it's going to cannibalise. There's not going to be an industry. It's hard to argue with someone appealing to an emotional response from you. If we don't use this system, the industry you love will die. We don't want it to die, do we? No, so support this system. And there are many good, genuine arguments as to why Project $10 and the online pass was, in theory, on paper, a decent idea. None of us wanted games to die, but when the system was applied to things like Saboteur's boobs, or the entire online offering from FIFA, or Tiger Woods, or Mortal Kombat, or whatever else, it just became a drastic exclusionary practice that would disproportionately impact younger and poorer gamers. It became, basically, hugely unfair. And that's not good. Some games implemented the online pass quite well, admittedly. THQ put up a wall in Homefront's online mode, which was the best part of the game. But it did limit how much you could play of it, just what level you could achieve, with no pass progress stopping at level 5. But you could still play online, in a limited fashion. The odd other here and there was alright, or even, dare I say it, generous maybe. Well, maybe not. It was a dark time. I forget things. But, yeah, supporting the developers with ongoing revenue, that's a good thing. They deserve it. Paying for servers, well, they need paying for, so sure, that's fine. The theory was there. The practice? Nah. How much of this extra influx of moolah did the devs see? Well, I can't say for certain, but I would guess at absolutely nothing. And the argument of keeping the servers alive with the online pass money? Well, let's look at Project $10's dad, EA. The company released EA Sports MMA in October 2010. It switched off the servers April of 2012. That's about 18 months online before being closed forever. Whether you bought it new, bought the online pass, or ignored it altogether. That's not on. Regardless of whether the game actually sold about 12 copies or not, it all led to the belief that the entire process was crafted with one goal in mind: taking advantage of the consumers. EA's Andrew Wilson said of the online pass, "In order to continue to enhance the online experiences that are attracting nearly 5 million connected game sessions a day, we think it's fair to get paid for the services we provide and to reserve those online services for people who pay EA to access them. In return, we'll continue to invest in creating great games and offer industry-leading online services to extend the game experience to everyone. Well, except if you're the MMA game, that is." The hypocrisy was staggering. But that's not the only thing that put people off. Extra cost is extra cost, and regular players didn't like the idea of that extra premium on top of when they've already paid for, well, everything. You bought a console and a TV, maybe, you paid a rent and other bills, there's an internet connection to cover, and you've possibly forked out for Xbox Live. After spending all that, maybe you want to save a bit of money on actually buying a game, and maybe you don't want to be nickel and dimed. Maybe? Possibly? I don't know. Being treated like a criminal for saving a bit of money and buying a used game is a feeling many of us still resent those publishers about, safe to say. Project $10 was one of the first, maybe the first, to officially die. EA announced in May of 2013 its online pass was to be summarily executed around the back of the sheds, and fittingly, nobody shed a tear at the news. EA Senior Director of Corporate Communications, John Reesberg, told GameSpeak, "Initially launched as an online effort to package a full menu of online content and services, many players didn't respond to the format. We've listened to the feedback and decided to do away with it moving forward." And it wasn't long before the others followed. Ubisoft, for one, shit-canned the whole online pass thing after players cried foul about its implementation in Assassin's Creed 4. Turns out putting a traditionally single-player bit of the game behind a paywall for used game buyers is a bit of a crappy thing to do. Who'd have known it? And before we knew it, the online pass, Project $10 and all its imitators was dead. But it wasn't quite as rosy a picture as it might first have seemed. See, since the not soon enough death of Project $10 and the online pass in general, little has been heard of similar projects, at least not ones made specifically to counter used game sales. Is it because used games are over? No, of course not. You can still pop into a GameStop, a CX or whatever else and fill your boots with cut price, slightly stained games that you trade your old ones in for. Did EA and co change their minds and release a joint statement saying, well, actually, used game sales are beneficial to the industry and do not, in fact, kill it? No, they did not. So, if used games still exist and nobody in the upper echelons of the big publishers actually changed their minds, what actually changed? The industry did. The ever-growing prevalence of DLC, coupled with horrible microtransactions encroaching on every aspect of our game's playing time, and the unstoppable rise of games as a service and season passes, means publishers now have plenty of ways to make money from us, regardless of how we've actually bought the game. But Larry, you say, confused by us all, surely if that's the case, then it means everything EA and the other publishers did with online passes wasn't actually focused on saving the industry, or saving the lives of overworked developers, or actually behaving in any altruistic manner, or keeping servers online like EA didn't with EA Sports MMA, or any other way it was sold to consumers. Surely if that is the case, it means that all of this was just about making money. Well, dear viewer, if you want to know the answer to that, it'll cost you $10. Checks can go to the usual address. Hello you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to be first to see future episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to remain notified, and be sure to check out my other videos. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon, where you can not only see new videos up to a week early, but also completely ad and sponsorship free. But thanks ever so much again for watching, and I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye, you.